Well, you've really done it this time, dum-dum. You found yourself at the wrong place at the wrong time, so it must be your favorite podcast, The Wrong Stuff. Guy Denton, how's it hanging?
Are we making that the new official slogan? Did I say something I really shouldn't have said last time?
No, I'm just gonna randomly have a gazoo dum-dum drop that anytime one of us makes a mistake, I'll just put that audio clip in. It'll be beautiful.
That would be splendid, actually. Yeah, and it'd really amplify the blooper. It would add a lot to the blooper reel too when we release one of those.
It would be beautiful, but I don't know if you know what's really beautiful. Did you ever see the Chris Isaak music video "Wicked Game"?
I believe, unless I'm confusing it with the "Bad Bad Thing" music video, which I very easily could be. But
That's another good song by Chris Isaak. I think he's an underrated performer. I'm a big fan. But let me tell you, if you were like 13, 14 years old back in the late 1980s, when this music video Wicked Game came out, let's say you couldn't get your hands on a Playboy. Let's say your parents wouldn't get you Skinamax. If you had MTV, this video came on. It could serve your purposes. Now, do you know the video I'm talking about, Guy? Or
yes.
You're too young?
I believe I may have seen it just on YouTube, but it sounds to me like I'll need a refresher, Matt. I don't know. Maybe the people at home will as well.
Well, the reason I bring it up is Melania Trump recorded a video. Now, what makes this disturbing is it's about abortion. But what's also weird about it is it's got almost the identical aesthetic as the Wicked Game video. So I don't know if you've seen it. Let's run it.
Individual freedom is a fundamental principle that I safeguard. Without a doubt, there is no room for compromise when it comes to this essential right that all women possess from birth: individual freedom. What does my body, my choice really mean?
I'm ready to buy some perfume, not a Melania book. But yeah, again, it is very similar to the aesthetic. I mean, we could have used some beach bathing suit stuff, but that wasn't there. But it's an interesting aesthetic choice. But I just want to play this clip one more time because I want you to listen to what she says.
Individual freedom is a fundamental principle that I safeguard. Without a doubt, there is no room for compromise when it comes to this essential right that all women possess from birth.
So there's no room to compromise. This is an essential right that all women possess from birth.
Individual freedom. What does my body, my choice really mean?
Are you tired of winning yet, pro-lifers? So now I'll get your, I want to have you weigh in 1 second because we have to play Donald Trump responding because he was asked about this.
Reaction to Melania's memoir about championing abortion rights and reproductive freedom. When you read it, what were your thoughts?
We spoke about it, and I said, you have to write what you believe. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You have to write what you believe. She's very beloved. People love our former First Lady, I can tell you that. But I said, you have to stick with your heart. I've said that to everybody. You have to go with your heart. There are some people that are very, very far right on the issue, meaning without exceptions. And then there are other people that view it a little bit differently than that.
Kamala Harris is out on the...
All right, so once again, he's championing, by definition, pro-choice policies. Everybody's got to make up their own mind, pro-choice. And look, I applaud him for standing by his woman. But the question I have for you, Guy Denton, why can't Trump get his wife in line?
That's not where I expected you would go with that. I mean, we don't want to get too scurrilous in our speculations about their relationship or anything, right? I will say, though, that it is certainly interesting that she would make something like that, but she would, by what it sounds like there and the way Trump is talking about it, do it rather independently and outside of his purview and supervision, right? I mean, I guess two things about the clips you just played. Well, three things. One is that the new Dior line looks great, as you hinted at, and I'm excited to try it and to potentially get it as a gift for people at Christmas. But secondly, that commercial and the argument she makes there could potentially be very compelling and effective if she wasn't potentially going to be the first lady of the next Republican administration, right? If she was going to be the first lady of the next Democratic administration, then that's a completely agree with it, disagree with it. That's at least a coherent. What she puts forward there is at least a coherent argument for being pro-choice, but it definitely isn't a socially conservative argument for being
Kamala
pro-choice.
should run the ad. Just run it as is,
Right.
and at the end, paid for by Harris Walls, or paid for by the National Abortion Rights Action League. That would be hilarious. SNL should do that.
I mean, I think Trump's ambivalence about all of this is in large part a symptom of the fact that Trump does not care about abortion as an issue. He never has. You can tell he certainly didn't. It doesn't take much to surmise, but he never did in his personal life until he became a Republican politician. And without a president, without a figurehead actually capable of putting forward a coherent vision for what the post-Roe landscape should look like, which is something the Republican Party has sorely lacked. Trump finds himself in the position of being the dog who caught the car on this. He has nothing to offer. He doesn't know where to go. He doesn't care about policy, and he makes policy up as he goes along. He doesn't understand law. He doesn't care about the Constitution. So what can he say about the abortion debate and about how conservatives should think about abortion, what abortion policy should look like, what the nature of giving abortion back to the state should actually look like in practice, and what it should entail legally, and how we should weigh up the potential consequences and effects of that for people and the case for abortion in various situations? He has nothing to offer. So of course Melania would be free to go about. Of course Melania is free to create a kind of advertisement like that, because Trump couldn't even offer a coherent rebuttal to it if he wanted to.
What a wicked game they play. That's all I can say. Okay. In other news, I don't know if you saw this, Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris had a joint appearance at the birthplace of the Republican Party. Is it Ripon or Ripon, Wisconsin? I'm not sure. I don't know. But here's what Liz Cheney had to say.
I tell you, I have never voted for a Democrat. But this year, I am proudly casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris. But mostly we're not going back.
So, I mean, look, now the Democratic Party, at least the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz campaign, is broad enough to include Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Bernie Sanders, Taylor Swift, and now Bruce Springsteen, the boss. The first guy to wear, or at least have, a red hat. It was sort of weirdly tucked into his back pocket on the cover of Born in the USA. Anyway, do you think this matters, or is it much ado about nothing?
I don't see it as very consequential, but I certainly don't see it as anything deleterious. It definitely isn't going to harm the campaign or weigh down Kamala's prospects. I mean, I think it certainly, as you said, it plays well into her rhetoric and the rhetoric we saw Walz try to employ in the debate of them, building a coalition of the sane, right? A forward-thinking coalition of people from all across the political spectrum and from all walks of life in this great three-wheeling, hog-stomping country of ours, right? Who want to get away from Donald Trump and get away from everything that Donald Trump represents and build forward into a new future marked by renewal and positive change and so on. That's all good. Do I think Liz Cheney's endorsement of Kamala in and of itself is especially consequential, though? Not really, because I think anyone who Liz Cheney could sway one way or another has already made up their mind. I mean, never Trump Republicans who like Liz Cheney aren't going to vote for Donald Trump anyway and aren't going to get behind J.D. Vance anyway. And other voters who are more to the left, or the sort of voting groups more to the left, who a Liz Cheney could hold cachet among, again, the other voters we talked about many times recently on this program, like suburban women and so on, again, are largely still remain a cornerstone of the Harris coalition to begin with. So I don't think it's going to make much of an impact on the polls, but it certainly isn't going to work against her. And even if it does only perhaps shift the needle, or in a very slight way, or to a very slight degree, if it does something to just encourage further good feelings around Harris, then in a race that's this tightly locked, any win, however perceivably small, is still a win and could still matter ultimately, right?
That's what I was going to say, right? The 2016 election was decided by 72,000 votes in a total of 3 states. The 2020 election was decided by 42,000 votes in a total of 3 states. So if you took someone like Liz Cheney, and I think maybe what she could do is, if you're someone in one of these important states, even like Wisconsin, where that event was held, you may be a Republican like Liz Cheney, who's never voted for a Democrat before. And maybe the choice is, do you sit it out or do you vote for Kamala, right? It's not Trump versus Kamala. It's do you write in Reagan or do you vote for Kamala? Maybe Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney create a permission structure where this one time you're gonna for the sake of democracy, you're gonna vote for Kamala. So again, I think you're right in the sense that maybe it doesn't have a huge impact, but I think you're also right that a huge impact could be a few thousand votes in one state, could be all the difference that it takes. So I think Liz, I will put it this way. I think the Liz Cheney endorsement is dramatically more important than the Bruce Springsteen endorsement.
No, that is, I certainly agree with that. No, that is an interesting point, and I think it's a pertinent one insofar as if you look at some of the internecine debates, on the right within internecine debates on the right that have been going on for a longer time, right, but have cropped up recently. I mean, David French had that New York Times piece about how he was going to vote for Kamala and how he was endorsing Kamala, and that whipped up all sorts of disagreement and debate among him and other never Trump conservatives, like my dear old boss, Jonah Goldberg, and other people at National Review and other center-right outlets, other pundits who still haven't lost their minds and have tried to stick to their principles in recent years, right? And there was a lot of resistance. There was a lot of resistance to David's point of view, and a lot of criticism of David for taking that stand. A lot of people made the argument that David, he wasn't necessarily out of line, but wasn't really doing the prudent thing that he thought he was doing by actively endorsing Harris and not just standing against Trump. So I do, and I think that's definitely indicative of a push-pull that a lot of actual voters feel about this. A lot of voters who feel disenfranchised and just horrified by the escalating insanity of both sides that we've witnessed in recent years, and may feel reluctant to cast a vote for either of them, could potentially be swayed by this. And again, I think the essence of elections and the way a lot of people do conceive of elections that we sometimes overlook is that elections are really just a glorified way of tallying opinion, right? And I think to a lot of people who would consider not voting, who don't think that you just should vote because people fought and died for your right to vote and it's an obligation, right? A lot of people who would say, I hate both of these people, so I'm just not going to vote, would see not voting as equally an expression of their opinion about the state of a race and the state of politics as they would casting a vote for Kamala, casting a vote for Harris, or casting a vote for Trump. So if any, as you said, again, if anything can sway them one way or another, it could potentially make an impact.
I see conservatism is standing athwart Trumpism, yelling "stop." And Guy, look, I'm someone I've never voted for Trump, and I've never voted for any of his Democratic opponents either, except I did vote in the primary one time, but never in the general election. I've never voted for a Democrat for president, partly because of what you're explaining. I didn't want to sort of be complicit in whatever left-wing stuff they might impose. I do think this is now our third time around. This time around, we've seen Donald Trump really try to stop the peaceful transfer of power and incite a riot. And so I think that with the help of Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, perhaps people who in the past I used to write in Ronald Reagan or Edmund Burke. This time, maybe they vote for Trump. I live in West Virginia. It doesn't matter. But if I lived in a swing state, I would vote for Kamala this time around. That's going to piss everybody off. Nobody's happy with that. There's no need to become complicit since it doesn't matter. Trump will win West Virginia by like 40 points. It doesn't matter what I do. Trust me. But you said something earlier, Guy, that I think is interesting. You were talking about the coalition of the sane. I don't know if you've seen this, but Matthew Iglesias has been writing about, I forget how he puts it, but essentially it's something like the coalition of the cranks. So it used to be that both sides had their own cranks, their own weirdos, like RFK would have been the left's problem, but there's been political sorting, SORTING, where the cranks have almost all picked a team. It's Team Trump. And Iglesias argues that it's actually unhealthy for democracy for all of them to go to one side. It's better to spread them thin on both teams. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but it is an interesting trend that I think has developed in the last year or two.
No, it is interesting. I haven't read the piece, so I can't comment on it with too much insight, I guess.
You had one job. I sent you that
know.
piece. No, actually, I didn't, but let's pretend.
But you can blame me anyway, Matt. That's fine. But I do think, just based on your summary of it there, it does speak to something. But I can see, just in looking at the race, I can see a lot of truth in. I mean, if you flash back to when the coronavirus pandemic hit, there was plenty of skepticism of vaccines and with Trump in charge. There was plenty of skepticism of vaccines and skepticism of what the vaccine rollout would look like and what the government response to it would look like among Democrats, including Kamala Harris, right? And then as soon as Trump was out of the picture and Biden was running the vaccine rollout and Biden was getting the pandemic under control and getting the pandemic out of people's minds was Biden's responsibility, all of that dissipated and it was all pushed over to the right instead. And all of the crankery on the right around vaccines and around those sorts of conspiracies was just emboldened by that.
Yeah, so the Democrats are now the party, almost exclusively the party of institutions and elites and experts and the establishment. And the Republican Party is almost, has a lock on the conspiracy theorists. And the problem is, like, sometimes the experts are right, sometimes they're not. We shouldn't just always trust them, but I do, I believe in experts. I want an expert flying my plane tomorrow, let me tell you that. I want an elite pilot, ideally. So I think it's more dangerous to be reflexively anti-elite, anti-establishment. But it is weird how that sorting has taken place. And so if you believe in experts, if you care about institutions, Kamala's kind of the way you go. And I think that speaks to this Cheney wing of the Republican Party.
That's right. And I think it's also a byproduct of this very clever, very crafty political legerdemain. Is that how you say that, legerdemain?
I think it is. It means trickery, right? Like a sleight of hand.
Yes, but Harris and Walz have been pulling since they took over from Biden. And I mean, if you look at the way Walz alluded to a lot of this in his statements at the debate, particularly his closing statements of the debate, but also throughout the debate, when the VP debate earlier this week, when issues like abortion came up, that Walz has framed himself as essentially a libertarian, essentially a classical liberal, someone who just wants everyone to get along and
mind your own damn business.
That's right, and that should be a conservative line, right? But that's the beauty of America.
Grover Norquist says conservatism is the leave us alone coalition. That's how he defined it, the tax reform guy.
And how do libertarian conservatives, how have they traditionally conceived of the greatness of America, right? Is that America's great because it's a place where I don't have to care what you think, Matt, and you don't have to care what I think, and we can both live our own lives. And if we don't ever want to interact with each other or be of any consequence to each other, we don't have to be. And that's what makes this country great. But now the Democrats have adopted that. Walz has made that a weapon. Walz has made it a talking point, and I think he's done it very effectively. And by extension, Harris has also, and by extension, Walz and Harris have also, and it's partly through their attacks on Republicans as weird, partly through the narrative they've created, this narrative of renewal and social revival around their campaign. They've been able very effectively to push all of this over to the Republican Party and to make it purely seem like the Republicans are dominated by this stuff.
Well, going back to Liz Cheney, one question I have is how many people know about this? I mean, I do this for a living. I get paid to follow this stuff fairly closely. And, you know, I saw it on Twitter. I don't really think I saw it that much on TV or anything. Like and by the way, I mean, you know, we are in the heat of the Major League Baseball playoffs. So we have our, you know, we have our priorities. We might be a little busy with other stuff, but I just have to wonder, it used to be we had 3 channels and everyone watched Johnny Carson and everyone watched the 6 o'clock news, and you had basically 3 choices, and they would have all included a major news story like Kamala Harris campaigning with Liz Cheney. I think our media fragmentation today, I don't even know what percentage of registered voters even know that Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris did that yesterday. I would venture to say it's less than 20%. So that's like, when we say, does this even matter? The first question is, do people know it happened?
Right. Or what percentage of registered voters knew about the Melania story either? Or what percentage of registered voters knew about the Mark Robinson story from the other week? Or a lot of the funny things that we've talked about on this show, and the sorts of things that are very amusing and very relevant to us. But
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we should. You said funny, and I want to address this. You and I started doing this show for reasons that I don't even understand. I think we just had this chemistry that drew us together. And you became a regular guest on my podcast, and then we decided this works so good. Let's just start our own show. We'll be co-hosts, and it's somehow it turned into basically I don't want to say a comedy show, but we do it on Fridays. You've usually had 2 or 3 drinks by the time we record. I'm stone cold sober.
Right.
But, and it's turned into like where we play clips and we make fun of them. And it's so, you know, it's serious stuff, but it lightens things up. I don't think we planned for that to happen, but it sort of happened. And sometimes we get some criticism where people say, how can you joke about whatever? It's so important. And I'm like, this is therapy, man, for me. And I hope the listeners too. I go through the whole week writing about school shootings and abortion. And on a Friday, my boy Guy Denton, you know, we have some levity. We engage in legerdemain.
Yes, it's all your fault for making all those jokes about cricket, Matt. You couldn't have just left cricket alone and let everyone feel bad about cricket. You had to turn it into a skit, didn't you? And now we both have to pay the price.
I think that part of what happened is, through no fault of our own, there were some funny things like cricket that happened in the news, and we liked it and people liked it. And I think accidentally we found that like this show's better when we can have a little fun.
I think that's right. And I think for the love of God, we deserve to have a little bit of fun, because this has been a deeply depressing and exhausting election cycle. But the painful part is you could say the same thing about the last 2 election cycles.
Yeah. But I hope people watch us or listen to us and they learn something and it brightens their day. They get a chuckle. I hope that happens.
I do too, Matt.
You either you laugh or you cry in this business. Those are the 2 options.
And if we didn't laugh, I think we would be in permanent therapy. We wouldn't have this show. We would never be off the couch.
What do you think our Halloween episode, we each come as a different member of KISS?
I was going to do that whether you wanted to or not. I don't know why you think this is a thing that needs to be discussed, Matt.
All right, people. How about this? I'll come up with a number, but if we can get X number of subscribers or whatever, we will come in full KISS regalia. And I might even get my kids to dress up like the lesser KISS members and stand behind me when we record this. Then we could be a full band.
Well, you know something, and this is serious, but I'm sure the majority of people won't believe it. I have never actually worn KISS face paint. I have never applied the makeup at any show or any KISS-related extravaganza I have been to. I've just never done it. I've never had the chance to do it. So it would be a necessary thirst in human history.
And I would have the perfect segue, because there's actually a politician in trouble for dressing in blackface, and believe it or not, I don't have the clip. So but that would have been the perfect go-to right now. I think we need to make this happen, but we need to lay down the gauntlet to the viewers and the listeners. We're not going to do this for nothing, because this will be used against us. It will keep us from getting jobs. It's going to
That's quite true.
It will. Yeah. I mean, I already didn't get into the really good schools. So
Matt, good schools. It'll be Exhibit A at my deportation hearing. Let's focus on the real priorities.
Mr. Judge, I present to you now Exhibit A. Is it true, Guy Denton, that you wore this costume on an episode of Matt Lewis? Yeah, no, it will be used against you. And someone who may testify against you is Donald Trump. Here's what he had to say about Liz Cheney.
Harris is out on the campaign trail today with Liz Cheney. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Liz Cheney lost for Congress. She was terrible. Liz Cheney is a stupid war hawk. All she wants to do is shoot missiles at people. I really think it hurts. I think, frankly, if Kamala, I think they hurt each other. I think they're so bad, both of them.
An endorsement that hurts both of them. Amazing.
Yeah, Liz Cheney is a stupid warhawk. Cheney doesn't have quite the same ring to it as some of his other catchy nicknames and pre-planned insults.
All she wants to do is shoot missiles at people.
That's right. I also appreciate she's a terrible candidate who lost, much like all of the candidates Trump endorsed in the 2022 midterms. But I guess we'll leave that to one side.
I saw someone on Twitter, a friend of mine on Twitter, said something to the effect of, if you looked at the vice presidential debate this past week, which feels like a million years ago, it was 4 days ago or 3 days ago or something, that it was like a Democratic primary debate from 2004, right? Basically. And if you look at Donald Trump and what he says about abortion, the way he's attacking a war hawk named Cheney, really, we've got two. It could be Dick Gephardt. If Dick Gephardt was meaner and had a better tan, he could fit right in today's Republican Party. It's amazing what has happened.
Oh, I agree. I mean, we didn't talk about the debate because you had your priorities, Matt, and you wanted to get Bill on to discuss it. That's
Bill and
fine.
I have had a long-term relationship. We've been together now for over 15 years, and I don't apologize when we have our time together, Guy.
I know. No, it's all right. I was out in the cold. I was looking through the window. Just the rain was coming down, but it was fine. I've recovered. I can take it. But I do think that
what we have is a fling. It doesn't compare to Bill and I have history. We've had 4 kids while doing the show together. I mean, it's complicated. And I'm not going to apologize for this.
Again, the fling ends when I get deported, I'm sure. But until then, I will.
Bill
say,
will have you deported.
He'll be the prosecutor in the trial, probably. I will say, on a serious note about all of that and what you just said, though, I saw the debate. But one thing I will say about the debate, and this is a sentence I never thought I would utter about a presidential debate for potentially another, 25 years. I actually enjoyed that debate. I did not think that debate was a painful or displeasurable experience, which is something that you could certainly not say about practically any debate since 2016. I mean, even the Democratic primary debates in 2020 were nightmarish on so many different levels. This, and I think the point you just raised there about it being like essentially two Democrats talking past each other in a primary was exactly how it felt. I mean, it was redolent of an old-fashioned presidential debate.
Yeah,
like a Nixon
from
Kennedy
2004 or something,
or even like a Nixon Kennedy or one of those debates from the late 20th century where both people on stage is essentially, in some all-important sense, right, don't really disagree on very much. They disagree about very specific things. And if you aren't a political junkie, it can be difficult at times to even keep up with what they're actually arguing about.
And once in a while, they would say, like, I agree with what he had to say, or he makes a good point here. And look, they were both lying and stretching the truth, but within the bounds of the normal spectrum of political behavior, not like what Trump does. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, Somewhat, it's too bad this person didn't tweet me earlier, or I would have stolen this idea. But he compared J.D. Vance to Eddie Haskell the character from Leave It to Beaver, who was like a bad kid, but he would always be like sucking up to "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Cleaver."
Right.
But anyway, I hear you. It was actually it compared to Trump Biden, it certainly felt like Lincoln Douglas or something.
No, that's true. And if it is of any consequence whatsoever, then I mean the major winner of the night was not Donald Trump or Donald Trump's campaign. The major winner of the night was J.D. Vance and J.D. Vance's future political prospects and J.D. Vance's future professional prospects. And I think that debate, if that debate meant anything to anyone, if any ordinary human being who doesn't have to watch it because of a business they're in, right, actually sat through that entire debate, then what they probably saw, unless they're fully indoctrinated into the cult on either side, especially if they feel politically alienated like us, right? But what that debate really represented, I think, is, it doesn't have to be as awful as it's been for the last 10 years. We can go back to this. There is perhaps a glimmer of light through the gloom on the horizon, and maybe something like this could be restored to the norm. Maybe a sense of normality like this could be restored once we move through and finally move ahead out of the political quagmire that we've seemingly been wallowing in for the last 4 to 10 years.
Well, if we're going to move on, I think one of the things we need to do is truth and accountability. And this requires accountability. So we need to hold some people accountable. I think that's the J6, rioters. There needs to be an example set. Like, hey, if you do this, there will be consequences. There was a consequence this week. I don't know if you saw this, but Mesa County, Colorado clerk Tina Peters was taken to task by a judge during sentencing. She was found guilty in August for allowing a man to misuse a security card to access the Mesa County election system for being deceptive about that person's identity. So this is from the AP. The man was affiliated with the MyPillow chief executive Mike Lindell, a prominent promoter of the claims that the voting machines were manipulated to steal the election. And I want to play for you two things. First, this is the lady, the lady who was found guilty, explaining to the judge why she should be let off the hook.
I'm very taken back by how awful I've been depicted when I was just trying to do my job, the people expected me to do. When I look at the people that have spoken here today and asking for harsh sentences, I'm just appalled. I feel bad for them because I know, I've often said God doesn't like people messing with his kids. And I believe I'm a child of God. And I believe that it was important for someone to stand up, and I chose to do that. I have health problems that would not be treatable in the Department of Corrections. First of all, I need a magnetic mattress. I've been on that since 1995.
So this reminds me of, who's the guy with the Viking helmet thing?
I can never remember his name.
I can't remember that guy's name, but he needed like a vegan meal in prison.
Right.
And I get that these trials are kind of boring, but basically, to sum it up, this woman is saying she is a child of God, therefore holding her accountable is like, I don't know, sacrilegious or an affront. And she needs a magnetic mattress, which will not, so she can't go to jail without the magnetic mattress. Okay, what I want to play you now, though, is the judge. And again, it's a little boring because it's a sterile environment, but he reads through the Riot Act pretty well, I think.
And ultimately, it was a belief that the echo chamber in which you live couldn't be wrong, among other things, that led you to do what you did here. This thought process, unfortunately, seems to consume so many in our country, regardless of race, gender, political affiliation, or the like, that what it is we hear and think can't possibly be wrong. There are many things in my mind that are crystal clear about this case. You are no hero, you abused your position, and you're a charlatan who used and is still using your prior position in office to peddle a snake oil that's been proven to be junk time and time again. In your world, it's all about you. But at bottom, this case was about your corrupt conduct and how no one is above the law. No one in this country has absolute power. Your position as a clerk and recorder, a constitutional position, does not provide you with a means by which to do your own investigation, to not listen to the judiciary, to not listen to the executives higher than you, to not listen to the legislature who sets the law as it may be. This is nonsense. Our system of government can't function when people in government think that somehow, some way, the power they've been given is absolute in all respects. And that's where you fell. You have no respect for the checks and balances of government. You have no respect for this court. You have no respect for law enforcement. And you do not have respect for your fellow colleagues when you were a clerk and recorder who weren't lockstep in your beliefs.
And may God have mercy on your soul.
Right.
Look, there are a bunch of crazy people in the country, and a lot of them are elected to different positions. And the Trump era has emboldened them to think they can just do whatever they want. And so I'm glad that there's some accountability. And I think we need to send a message that you break the law, you do the crime, you do the time. What do you think?
I agree with that, but I was going to make a joke about how at my deportation hearing I will employ the defense, but well, God wouldn't convict me, so
Yes.
you shouldn't either. But then the judge's response there was so vituperative and dismantled her entire case so precisely and so ruthlessly. But I think I'll just let them convict me. I'm not sure I'm even going to bother.
I'm not sure you can get a magnetic bed in England. So I think you have to stay put right here.
Least of all, I'm definitely not on the boat back either. I wouldn't have thought so.
All right. We're almost out of time, but I wanted to share with you because, here we are. We're in October already. Don't know if you saw that. It's now October. Not too early to start thinking about Christmas presents for that certain someone. Let me recommend this.
This iconic piece of art is a testament to the unwavering resilience of President Donald J. Trump and the strength of the American spirit. This 9 3/4 inches tall, bronze-painted statue reminds us we must fight, fight, fight in order to reclaim the America we once knew for our children and grandchildren. Don't miss the chance to own your very own art piece immortalizing this historic moment of God's protection over our 45th president, Donald J. Trump.
If you go to patreon.com/Matt Lewis, I'll send you a signed copy of Too Dumb to Fail, a signed copy of Filthy Rich Politicians, and a commemorative assassination attempt plaque. Excuse me, not plaque, bust that could adorn your office desk. What do you think? It seems like an amazing present to give someone.
I know we disagreed about the Reagan movie, but I think one thing we certainly can agree on is that Ronald Reagan really missed a trick by not monetizing his attempted assassination and not releasing something similar to that. One thing you have to give Trump is he is a brilliant, he does have a knack for marketing. And
All right, in fairness, I don't think that one was the Trump campaign. I don't know. But some cult member clearly put that together.
It's rubbed off on.
Yes.
It's rubbed off on his followers. There's no escaping that or taking that.
No,
away.
he is selling watches and shoes and other stuff. But I don't want to. I'm not sure that was actually him selling that.
Well, I'm sure they're building a to scale one that will actually be sold at Trump rallies and future Trump events. It's still in the manufacturing stage.
Indeed. Well, we've done it again, Guy Denton. We've wasted another 35 minutes or something in the wrong place. You know what that means, right?
I have an idea, Matt, but I think I might need you to clarify.
It's cold gin time again.
That's right.
The deal we make you, and we do offer a pewter statuette of commemorating the assassination attempt. But the deal we make as well with our viewers and listeners is that you drive us wild and we drive you crazy. And I think we've lived up to that part of our bargain today.
I think we've been living up to it successfully for the last however many months we've been doing this, Matt. But hopefully we can keep it going as we head into the actual final days of the election at long last.
We've been doing it at least since cricket took a bullet to the head and was taken out by the gravel pit.
Yes, a day that will live in infamy, truly. Children will be studying that in textbooks decades from now in high school.
We could only wonder what that debate would have been like if it had been Christino. But anyway, We can dream. I guess, Guy Denton, we're going to call it a day. I'll see you back here in the wrong place, the wrong time, on our show The Wrong Stuff next week. Have a good one.
You too, Matt.
That, dum-dum, is where I have to draw the line.
If you like what you heard here today, please make sure to follow the show, subscribe to the show, leave a like, review the show wherever you get your podcast, and also please smash that like button, or whatever the people my age are saying. I don't know. I am a Kiss fan after all. But nonetheless, you can also follow us on X at WrongStuffPod, or drop us a note. Fawning praise or scornful disdain, we accept both, at the Wrong Stuff Pod, all one word, at gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. We're looking forward to next time.